Well, good morning. Get this stuff over with on Tuesday. News up again. Let me back to a few announcements and then Ryan has due to the uptick in cases in our county, it's with a little bit of reservation that I tell you that we will start Sunday school next Sunday. For those classes who are wanting to read, I'm sure it won't be a full Sunday school, but there are some adult classes I know we're going to read, so we will start that next Sunday, asking that we be cautious. I'm not an alarmist, but I want us to be cautious. The reports that the virus is possibly in our area, in our country, and so let's be very cautious as we do all that we can to hand washing all for all of these months. But if you're still spooked about it, stay home, okay? So that won't be a problem. So please do that. There is a little change. This is a typo. Wednesday prayer meeting, 6 o'clock, not 7 o'clock. I don't know what happened to that typewriter, but it was sometimes it has a 9 minutes on. You know that. So you know that it will be 6 o'clock, just in case someone saw that and thought maybe we'd change it, but we're not changing it to 6 o'clock. Okay, Ryan, come on up here.
So I'm having to look at my phone because I can't remember the dates, but need y'all to, if you can, remember this date. So our new preacher, our potential new pastor, is we're going to hold a get-together and a little small feed or what have you and we're going to do that on Saturday, July the 25th. On Saturday, July the 25th, we'll make times for that. Take what time. We'll just have sandwiches and chips, snacks, desserts. He'll be here. His wife will be here, and I'll come meet him. And he will be here the next day preaching beautiful talk. So be sure and write that down. It's Saturday the 26th. And he will be here to preach, or Saturday the 25th, he will be here to preach the next day, the 26th. So we'll keep you more, or I'll let you know more as I know more, but I'll need some ladies or whoever to help organize some food and snacks. That will be appreciated. Just get with me and let me know. But we'll keep announcing it every week to remind everybody. Everybody posted. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's start then.
Will you all please stand with me? This Saturday, it's on. Press the button. This Saturday is July 4th. And as we all know, it's Independence Day. And he gives us the freedom to meet, and he even gives people certain freedom to do what a lot of people don't agree with. So if you don't mind, let's pay tribute and honor our country. Let's say Star Spangled Banner followed by, or let's say the Pledge of Allegiance followed by the Star Spangled Banner. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming.
Howard, let's have a word of prayer. Father, we thank you now for an opportunity to come to your house of worship. We thank you, God, for the freedoms that are afforded us to do so. And we pray, God, that as we meet together with a large number of our family, our church family, not being able to be here, we pray, God, that you might bless them where they might be. We pray, Father, again, that you would guard us from the virus that seems to be circulating more and more in these last days. We pray, Father, that we'd stay safe and with the health that you've given us, that we do all we can to further the kingdom's cause. So bless us today as we come together. Help us, Heavenly Father, to never take for granted the freedom that is afforded us for being Americans. We commit this time to you now, praying that you would use it to bring us to a closer walk with you. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Galatians chapter 5, verse 13. We'll come to that in just a moment. But if you have your Bible, you might want to turn to that. We'll see what it says in a moment. But the final draft of the Declaration of Independence was completed on or about July the 4th, 1776. It wasn't until about a month later, in fact, August the 2nd, that delegates from different states came together, 56 men, to sign the Declaration of Independence there in Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Within the text of the Declaration of Independence, the second paragraph has these words: "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Among the rights that the Constitution affords us as Americans is that statement, liberty. Liberty or freedom is ours." Following that, we know that the Revolutionary War came about, and then finally on September the 17th, 1787, at the same Independence Hall there in Philadelphia, 39 delegates, many of whom had signed the original Declaration of Independence, but 39 delegates from 12 states met and signed the Constitution of the United States of America. I read that again and was reminded that of the 12 states, I was thinking, well, I thought there were 13 states. There was 13 states, but Rhode Island was one state that chose not to send delegates to that convention. And the reason, it turns out, by the way, that Rhode Island was probably right not to send any delegates. I don't know, I'm just kind of jogging your memory on history here, but if you'll remember, they were the only state that did not want the federal government in their business. And so they stood by the Articles of Confederation, which strictly limited the powers of a central government. And so we see today that Rhode Island had something to stand for. They wanted the control of the states to be left in the states' hands rather than coming together and making it one big entity whereby the government would be controlling everything. It was not intended to be that way from the beginning. Amen. But over the years, and especially in our generation, the last several years, we find that the government is gaining more and more control about everything that we are, everything that we have. It seems that they're wanting to be in every part of our business. So they signed the Constitution of the United States, and the key statement in the Constitution is this: "And secure the blessings of liberty." Secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, that is, to give us freedom and to afford us that freedom to live our lives as God would have us to live them. And so God gives us the direction as how to live that freedom out. He gives us the direction in His Word how to have freedom and how to live day by day as if we are free people. And that short passage, just one verse in Galatians 5, verse 13, spells that out for us in just a few words. Here's what it said. He says, "You, my brothers, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the sinful nature. Rather, serve one another in love." Again, he says, "You, my brothers, were called to be free." We're going to talk about that. Secondly, do not use your freedom to indulge the sinful nature. We'll talk about that. And then finally, he says, "Rather serve one another in love." So the instruction that he gives here, of course, pertains to spiritual freedom in the Word of God, but it is a freedom principle that we need to learn, and it's given to us. So let's look at what God says through Paul as it pertains to our freedom as Americans in today's world. What does it mean to you and I today? The first thought that I want you to see is in that statement, "You, my brothers, were called to be free." I'm calling this thought freedom assigned. Freedom assigned. So what does that mean in our world today? The American Revolution, freedom from Great Britain, of course, under King George III at that time, cost 25,000 American lives. And then from that time to this time, there are countless of thousands of lives that have been given for your freedom and for mine. But that initial cost was 25,000 lives. And because of that, and the subsequent wars that have followed to guard our freedom, you and I, in this generation, were born free. That is, freedom has been assigned to us. We didn't have to fight for it. I didn't have to fight for it, but someone did. And because of their sacrifice, freedom was assigned to me. By that, I mean that when we have the freedom that we have today, it was given to us because of the great sacrifice that others have made. So freedom assigned in that statement. My brothers, we're called to be free. Amen. And so with that freedom, with that assigned freedom, comes some restraints. It doesn't mean that we're free to do anything that we want to do. It doesn't mean that we're free to be anything that we want to be. It means that with that freedom, there are some consequences, there are some responsibilities, there are some restraints that is put upon us. So the Constitution allows us to live free, but at the same time, it restrains us in that freedom. Thus, the laws have been made not just to free us, but to keep us free and to restrain us in some things. It's like the original 10 Commandments. If you'll read the 10 Commandments again, there in Exodus chapter 20, you'll find that there are 4 thou shalts, but there are 6 thou shalt nots. And all of that, those 10 Commandments, that's one law that the Jews were given, that were given to the Jews to live by. And so you see the freedom that they had through the thou shalts, but the restraints on what they could do with that freedom is found in the thou shalt not. So the same Constitution that declares us to be free today constrains us or restrains us, I might say. I like to illustrate that with the illustration of a kite. How many of you has flown a kite sometime in your life? You know, you got this little kit from Walmart was not around back then, by the way. McCall's or somebody, the corner store. You got that little kit. It had those long sticks in it, and it had that paper, and then it had that tail that you put on it, and then a ball of string. You know, you go home and you put it all together, and you go out into the wind and you kind of let a little string out and start running, and lo and behold, that thing starts going. You begin to peel off the string. And it flies higher and higher. It catches the wind that it might soar there in the wind. But at the same time, the string holds it back. It restrains it from having freedom to go anywhere it wants to up there. It might jump 10 feet to the left or 20 feet to the right, but it has a restraint on it, and that string is the restraint that keeps it up there. Now what happens if you turn loose of the string? The kite comes down. I can tell you something today. That's an illustration of what might be happening in America today. Someone has turned loose of the strings of America, and this restraint is being taken away, and it seems that America is just seemingly falling to the ground. It's falling down and nothing, because there's nothing that will hold it up. There's no more restraints. I think about that today. And it's also a spiritual principle. Just as the Constitution keeps us in bounds physically in our lives, the Bible keeps us in bounds spiritually by what it says we can do and what we can't do. But someone in America, as I've said, has turned loose of the strings of the greatest nation in the world, and it seems to be plunging down, down, down. Which brings me, by the way, to my second thought. Freedom assigned, there where it says, you, my brothers, were called to be free. Freedom abused. Look at that next statement. But do not use your freedom to indulge the sinful nature. Do not use your freedom to indulge the sinful nature. In other words, don't abuse the freedom that we've been given. Amen. And I'm afraid today in America, a great percentage of Americans today is guilty of abusing the freedom that's been given to them. Misusing the freedom that's given them. We seem to have among us a whole generation of folks that are doing that very thing. Abusing freedom. Misusing it, misapplying it, and abusing that freedom that we have. Look what happens when you use your freedom to indulge the sinful nature. Look around us today. Look at the news today. Look at the newspaper. Listen to the radio. Listen to the newscast on television, and you'll see what I'm talking about. A great number of our population abusing the freedom that's been given to indulge the sinful nature. Literally thousands have been arrested for rioting and looting over the past 2 months or so. Amen. It's a terrible thing to see. The dollar amount of businesses, cars, and other property and carnage across America cannot even be estimated. The dollar cost is so high. A large proportion of a major city in the United States, that is Seattle, Washington, has been taken over, has been occupied, and they have tried to tear down even a portion of our capital of the United States, trying to occupy it in Washington, D.C. Many innocent people have been injured. Several injured people that are innocent have been killed in the rioting and in the looting. Historic sites are being removed and destroyed. Brand food items are even being changed. It won't be long till you can't buy Uncle Ben's rice anymore. Or you can't buy Aunt Jemima's pancake mix anymore. Even those names have been changed and are being changed. Police and law officials and personnel are being threatened day by day. Some of them have been injured. Some of them have been killed. In West Virginia, a statue of Don Knotts. You know who Don Knotts is. Barney Fife. They're threatening to tear down the statue of Barney Fife there in West Virginia. He is a native West Virginian. And the reason they're wanting to tear it down is because the statue shows him dressed in his deputy's uniform. In other words, in his law enforcement uniform. And they're threatening to tear down that statue that's been there forever. I was amazed this morning to find out again that even Orange County, California airport, they're trying to, in fact, the council, the city council has voted to take the name of that airport down. You know what the name of the airport is? John Wayne Airport. And it's because 50 or 60 years ago, he made some statements that sounded derogatory at that time, and it's sure derogatory at this time. And so because of that, they're wanting to tear down, take the name of that airport away and change it back to Orange County Airport. A Black Lives Matter leader has threatened on national television. He says, we'll burn the thing down if our demands are not met. I'm telling you folks, we're in trouble in America today. And it's because we're not using our freedom in the way God would have us to. We're using our freedom in a way that indulges the sinful nature. That is, whatever feels good and whatever sounds good to me, that's what I'm in for. There's literally a mob mentality all across our nation, and very little seems to be getting done about it. We are abusing freedom today all across America. And if all of that were not enough, over 50 million babies have been offered. Over 50 million babies have been offered on the evil altar of convenience since Roe versus Wade. It's getting out of hand all across America today and all across our world today. Even trying to tear down images and statues of a white Jesus. When will this end? When will this come to an end? It will end when God's people join our hearts in earnest prayer that drives us to a positive and godly action. You say, preacher, what are you talking about? I'm talking about call your representative, call your senator. Amen. Let people know where you stand. Call those representatives and hold their feet to the fire. And tell them that I voted for you for this reason, and you're the only one that can do something about it. I insist that you move in a positive way to stop all of this that's going on. I can say to you again today, enough is enough. And we're there at this time. If this does not end, by the way, I want you to see what comes about when that sin nature is indulged. If you look in Galatians 5 verses 19 through 21, here's what comes about when all that happens. It says in verse 19, the acts of the sinful nature are obvious. Sexual immorality. Well, guess what? You don't have to look very far to see that. Impurity and debauchery. It's all over the nation today. Idolatry and witchcraft. Hatred. I've never seen so much hate in all of my life that I've seen in the last several months. Hatred, discord. You see discord. One group against another group. Black Lives Matters against others, and in all of these different groups. You see jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of heaven. And I can tell you this, that those that live like that also will not enjoy the freedom that we have in America today. There has to be restraints on freedom. Someone has to put a boundary down and say that this is far as I'm going to allow this to go.
Amen.
I put this boundary. Don't step over this line.
Amen.
And only when we come to that attitude in America will this thing begin to be straightened out. So I've said to you that we have freedom is assigned to us. But secondly, freedom is abused. Hosea said, in Hosea's book, he says, they sow the wind and they will reap the whirlwind. And again, he says in another place, they are like a dove, easily deceived. They call to Egypt, that is to the wrong sources, and they turn to Assyria to get things done. All of that to the nation of Israel. They knew exactly what that meant. They knew that meant they were going back to the wrong source of solving the problems that they had. One pastor has said, and you've heard this before, if God doesn't judge America, he's going to have to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah for what he did there. I can tell you folks, we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of problems.
Amen.
But the third thought I want to share with you is freedom in action. What does freedom really do? What does it cause us to do? Well, the Bible says again there in that passage, my brothers, we're called to be free. We've been assigned freedom. Do not use your freedom to indulge the sinful nature. In other words, don't abuse your freedom. But he says, rather serve one another in love. That's freedom in action. Serving one another in love. Why? Because the Bible teaches us that above all, keep loving one another earnestly, because love covers a multitude of sins. Love will cover over a lot of these bad things that are happening today. If we'll but show love, and if we'll do all that we can to show that love. Jesus overcame hate. How? He overcame it with love. You remember what he said there on the cross. He says, my command, he says, I ask you, Father, forgive them because they do not know what they're doing.
Amen.
Forgive them, show love to them in forgiveness because they're ignorant of what's going on. I believe we have a generation of ignorant people today.
Amen.
That we need to love somehow and to love them back to doing what is right under the guise of freedom. Jesus overcame hate with love. He said, my command is that you love one another. He didn't say, my suggestion is that you love one another. He says, I command you then that you love one another. Jesus said again, pray for those who mistreat you. Prayer, when it's in the equation of any problem and any solution for any problem, something is going to get done. Prayer has to be in the equation of everything that we do. So you say, preacher, how then do we handle what's going on? Simple statement. We do it by trusting God, doing what He's called us to do, love one another, pray for one another, and then trust Him for the results.
Amen.
Just trust Him for the results. So I'll close again by asking you to call your representative. Call your senator. Tell them where you stand. Tell them why you voted for them. And tell them to take care of the problem that we have.
Amen.
All across our great land.
Amen.
Bow with us, please, and we'll pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this few minutes in your word today. I pray, Heavenly Father, that the Spirit of God is moving us to remind us of what freedom is and what it's not. What we can do through freedom and with freedom, and what we cannot do with or through freedom. And I pray, Heavenly Father, that as upset as we might get at the folks that are causing all of the problems, spewing forth all of the hate in America today, it's to the point that we can barely sit through a newscast. I pray, Father, that you would remind us that your Son Jesus went to the cross for people just like those folks. And it was that crowd that crucified him. And it was his statement on that cross that they be forgiven. I pray, God, that somehow we would incorporate something like that in our love for other people. Especially that we would love them enough to pray for them. And I know God, as people pull down statues, as people deface storefronts and loot, rob, and do all that we can, I know it's hard to even think about love in that situation. But somehow you've called us to be a people of love and a people of forgiveness. And I pray, God, that we would pray somehow, that we would pray the evil out of these folks, that we would pray the devil out of them, and somehow that we could reach again, pick up the string that holds America up, the string of restraint. And I pray, God, that I don't know how you would do it, but somehow that you would get it all together again. We commit this to you now, in the name of Jesus, who is our Savior. Amen. Amen. God bless you.